Boundaries are so necessary when it comes to your family. Now, we have talked on this show about boundaries before. I talked about 10 boundaries that you need to implement in your life, but I specifically today just want to have a conversation around boundaries when it comes to your family. So let's get into it. So welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast. Today we're talking about family boundaries. This is not going to be a long episode because we've already talked about boundaries before in a previous episode like a couple of weeks ago. But I wanted to just kind of come in and talk about that a little bit more because online people are asking a lot of questions when it pertains to their family. And so I wanted to just shoot a quick episode to just talk about what that looks like for your family. So I'm going to type in Google really quickly and I'm going to type and see what Google says or what AI may say around boundaries with, let me see, boundaries with family. Okay. And I'm just going to see what does AI say on Google and then what else comes up. Okay. Boundaries with family are guidelines that define how you want to be treated and what you're willing to do. They can help you build better relationships with your family members. Here's some examples of boundaries: personal space, time management, privacy, emotional energy, and digital boundaries. They gave 5 different tips for setting boundaries. 1, be assertive. 2, communicate clearly. 3, be okay with saying no. Put your needs first and respect their boundaries. So let's have a conversation about those examples of boundaries. So personal space, time management, privacy, emotional energy, and digital boundaries. So when I think about boundaries, now this may be your first time hearing me talk about this, so I'll just reiterate it. A lot of times people look at boundaries as here's how to keep people out, but that's not what a boundary is. A boundary says you are invited in, but here is the way to come in, right? So I am here in my apartment and my apartment complex has a boundary, okay? Everybody can come through the front door of the front desk, right? Downstairs. Everybody can come in through the front door before 7 p.m. at night. If it's after 7, they have to have a key fob in order to be able to get in. That's a boundary. You are welcome in during the time when we are here, when we're open. When we're not open, you must have a key. Then once you get to the elevator, the only way to go upstairs to a floor is you have to have a key that you can tell them that I can go to a floor. Then once you get into the garage, the only way to get into the rest of the building is you have to have a key. That doesn't mean that people aren't invited in. It just means that here is how you can get in. So then to get into my specific apartment, you have to have the key to my apartment to get in. So people are welcome in through the boundary. Like the window, you can't come in that way, okay? You can come in through the front door. So when it comes to your family, it is really important that you are clear as to what does that look like to have a relationship with you, okay? What does that look like to have a relationship with you? I'll give you an example. One of the ways to have a relationship with you is to respect the fact that they don't have access to your ATM card or your ATM pin. Right? It may sound money hungry, but just hear me. You work, you have money in the bank, and then you have an ATM card and you have a pin to take money out. You don't just give your card and your pin to all your family members. You would probably take money out of the bank and give it to them if they needed it. Maybe your husband, wife, or maybe your child or something like that. They may have your card and your PIN depending on what their relationship is, but every member of your family does not have your ATM card, okay? What does that also look like? That also looks like you're in a marriage, right? Your husband, wife, children, whatever. And it looks like you sitting down with your family members and saying, hey, we are disciplining my daughter through this, this, and this. And because she did this, this, and this, she doesn't have access to her phone or iPad. So I would really appreciate it if when she comes over that you don't give her your phone, you don't give her your iPad because she is grounded from those things because of this particular behavior. And so that's setting a boundary of like, hey, we're trying to discipline our daughter. And in order to discipline our daughter, I need you to adhere to what we are doing here and not overstep those boundaries by doing something else, right? Or our kids are not allowed to have these sweets, right? So if they come over, please do not give them those sweets. You can give them this, and this, but please do not give them those things. Why would you do that? Because you're trying to do something in your own household with your children, and you need to tell the people where they are going your expectations, right? So, and the way that you're doing in your household. So this is what you need to be doing when it comes to your family members, right? Now, a lot of times people feel like this is harsh. It only feels harsh if you don't have boundaries. For the longest time when I didn't have boundaries, I didn't respect people that had them. I felt like they were doing too much. I felt like all types of things. But the truth of the matter was that they just had boundaries. And I got an opportunity to know how to be in relationship with those people, right? So what is my boundary? My nephew a couple years ago said, Auntie Kenya, I want to come and stay with you. And I said, no. And he said, well, why not? And I said, well, here's what you want to do. You want to move, because I was in San Diego. You want to move to California. You want to live in my place, and you don't want to pay rent, pay electricity, pay any bills. You want to come and eat. You want your phone, and you're not really, probably initially talking about getting a job. So you're not going to be paying for anything, probably not even your phone. And so you're just going to want to come live there and live with me and my experience. And he was like, yeah. And I said, no. He said, well, why not? I said, well, I pay all the bills here. It's expensive, right? Expensive to have an apartment, electricity, food. It's already expensive for me and the cats. And here you come along. You're a whole human being. Now I've got to find a place where you can sleep. There's double everything because you're there, and I got my quiet space, and that's not going to be the case if you come. And so the boundary was, hey, if you want to buy a plane ticket and come and visit me for a week, you buy the plane ticket, I'll come pick you up from the airport, and I will take care of you for an entire week. If you want to do that, let's do it. Guess what? He didn't buy a plane ticket. What did that mean? That means he wanted me to take care of him for however long he was going to be here. And I set the boundary of, I want to see you. I want to spend time with you. I want you to come to California, but here is what that looks like. That makes sense. Then I had a situation where I love my family, but I'm just telling you, where for the longest time, my mom and my grandma, they would only call me for money. And I let it for like years and years and years and years and years and years and years. Because I was just so thankful that they were calling and that I felt needed and and all this stuff. And then I felt obligated to help because I had some money. Not really, but you know what I mean? And finally, one day I realized they only call me when they ask for money. They don't ask me how I'm doing. They don't care how I'm doing. They don't send me birthday presents. They don't call me for my birthday. None of this stuff happens. And I only hear from them when they need money. And so finally one day I said, I love you guys. And I want a relationship with you guys, but I don't want it like this. I don't want to, every time I get a call that all you want is money. I want to actually, you want to spend time with me or talk to me or get to know me. Well, I didn't talk to them for 3 years. 3 years. 3 years because they were only calling me for money. So then I was labeled as bougie, like I didn't care about anybody and all this stuff. And the truth was that I was giving them money, but here was the boundary. You need to want to spend time with me and get to know me and talk to me before you're asking me for money. And that wasn't a bad boundary to set. They just didn't like it, And then I had a situation with my uncle who's passed on now where he was fairly toxic, but I love my uncle. He's crazy and I just love my uncle. Where when my grandma passed away, I was coming there for vacation to hang out. And when I got there, I was like, whoa, what is going on here? And I get my grandma to the hospital. It's a traumatic situation. I won't talk about it. And I'm there with her trying to take care of her when all these grownups have lived there, and it's just crazy. And so she passes away a couple days later, and my uncle is going crazy on me on Facebook. And I'm like, what are you mad at me about? Why didn't you tell me my mama was sick? And I'm like, I don't even live there. I live in California. I'm there on vacation. Why, how come you're not calling your mama? How come you're not coming to see your mama? Why are you mad? Why are you mad at me? And I said to myself, okay, I got an opportunity here. I've got to figure out how he can be in a relationship with me or not right in that moment. And I decided this is your mama. This is your responsibility to make sure she was okay, not mine. And then I just blocked him on Facebook. Because I'm like, whatever's misplaced energy, I mean, he's got to deal with himself. I'm not going to take that on, right? And he had to deal with that with whomever else he had to deal. People had to talk him off the ledge because it was like they had nothing to do with me, but that was a boundary, that I set. Then I saw my auntie, just all these different family members with all this stuff, and I had to be like, hey, here is what you're doing, how you're trying to show up here with me, and that's not how we do this. I love you. I want to get to know you. I want to spend time with you. Here is what that looks like to me. You can't be cursing at me. You can't be cursing at me. You can't be accusing me of this. You can't be talking all the time. Here is what this looks like for us to be in a relationship. And you have to figure out, what does that look like for you? Otherwise, you will always be doing all this stuff with your family members. You'll always have all these feelings and all this stuff around them because there's no boundaries set in place. None of my family members can just call me up and ask for money anymore. None of them. Why? Because they don't even call to say hi. They don't call to say, how are you doing? They don't call to say, hey, I know you just had surgery. How are you doing? So I'm like, no, you cannot call and ask me for anything except for how am I doing? And I'll ask you how you're doing. Right? You can't ask me to come and visit because I'm saying, well, when are you going to come and visit? Right? I can love them completely and have a boundary. Same thing goes for you. You've got that mom, uncle, sister, cousin, dad, whatever that's doing all these things in your life and you don't like it. You've got to figure out how to set those boundaries with them, because if you don't, things will continue. This doesn't make you better than them or them worse off than you. It just means that here you are. Here's your family members, and you have to figure out how to be in relationship with them, how to let them in aspects of your life and what that looks like. It's like I had to block my dad on social media. He was doing the most in my inbox, and I'm like, what is going on with the block? And I was like, when he can get himself together, he has my phone number. He can call me. He can text me. We're not going to do this on social media. I'm like, we're not doing that. And for the longest time, he didn't reach out. And I'm like, that's on him. When he's ready, he will know how to come and talk to me. When things went down with my grandma, he was doing something on social media. That's when I blocked him. And then finally he had to come to his own self and go, okay, obviously whatever I'm doing with my daughter is not working. And I'm not going at him by no means. I'm choosing to... And once you figure out how to calm down and come back in, we can have a conversation, And so that's kind of how I am with everybody. I explain to people that I love you. I want you, this, and this, and let's do this. And then as people start getting to know me, then I kind of set boundaries. Like my family members, they all have my number, no problem. But like, if I meet somebody in person and they met me on social media, I don't give them my phone number. Why? Because I don't want them texting and calling me for business reasons, like because I teach TikTok marketing or whatever. I have to establish some level of what the relationship looks like, and that, hey, I don't really like it when people text and this, when they do this, and this. I just want to get to know you. That's like right now, while I'm here in Houston and I'm making friends, I'm having to say to people, hey, let's go and have dinner. Let's go and have lunch. And we meet at the restaurant. And then if I want to connect even more, I'll say, here's my number, but here's the deal. I would really appreciate if you don't ask me any questions about business or nothing business related on my phone, because I don't do any of that. And they say, okay, I give them my number. And then if they start doing that, I will ignore them for a little while, for a couple days, and then I'll come back to them and I'll say, hey, remember when we sat down and I asked that, that we not do this? And I'm like, well, the other day you kind of did that, and I was trying to figure out how to share that with you again, but I really want to have a relationship with you, but just not like that. And so some people don't like it, some people do, but the bigger overarching thing is that I have to have a boundary. I have to have a way of people coming in. You have to have a way of people coming in, and not them doing whatever it is they want to do. Because I already know you're listening to me, you're watching me, and you can think of people who are doing the most in your family. It is on you to establish what is that boundary. Okay. They may not like it. They may push back and all the things, but it is still on you to establish that boundary. But you have to first figure out, what is it? What do you need? How do you want people to enter? How do you want them to behave with you? What is okay and what's not okay? Until you know that, you can't set the boundary, right? You've got to figure out what that is, and then be okay if they don't like it. And you got to be okay if they start setting boundaries, because that's possible when that happens, okay? So I just want to share that because a couple weeks ago we talked about 10 boundaries to implement, but I wanted specifically to talk about families because I know that one is a lot more sensitive. And a lot of us feel like we can't really set boundaries, but you can. Okay. So if you got any questions about this, go ahead and ask me here in the comments on YouTube. If you're listening to the show, come let me know over on YouTube at You, Me, and Jesus. I would love to know. So thanks so much for listening and watching.